Hey, folks, Alan Saunders. Thanks for joining me on Pittsburgh Sports Live. We're talking Steelers football today as the Steelers made some news in the coaching world, hiring Pat Meyer from Carolina, where he had spent 2 seasons with the Panthers. That's the second coach the Steelers have hired from the Carolina Panthers this offseason, both on offense, with Meyer joining Frisman Jackson, who's the new wide receivers coach. So I thought we'd get some insight as to what is going on with these coaches from Carolina, whether they're good fits for the Steelers and what happened during their tenure with the Panthers that didn't work out. So brought in our friend Schuyler Callahan, who works for Sports Illustrated, covers the Panthers there, along with a lot of other things, Charlotte Hornets and West Virginia and some other stuff. And so Schuyler, thanks for joining us. And I guess, what can you tell us about why these guys aren't with Carolina anymore? I know they had turnover at the offensive coordinator spot with Joe Brady leaving. Is that the number one reason, or what all happened that these two guys were available for the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely Joe Brady not being a part of the puzzle definitely has something to do with it. But as far as Pat Meyer goes, it wasn't working. They had 2 really bad years at offensive line. And you go back to his time when he was the offensive line coach with the Chargers, they were bottom half of the units type of units when he was there too. So I don't really know if he's going to be the solution for Pittsburgh, but I think just getting him a new fresh start will work really well for him. He didn't really have the pieces in Carolina. I mean, outside of Taylor Moton, I don't really know that any of those guys should be starting in the NFL. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Well, I got to say, that was said around here a couple times this past season, maybe by me once or twice.
Yeah. So he might be in the same situation. So I don't really think that it's a great hire. It's not a bad hire. But I think the thing with Pat Meyer, if you look at his history, he doesn't really develop interior offensive line. I don't know Pittsburgh's situation as well as I do Carolina's, but the inside spots at guard, center, they don't really develop, and tackle has been a sore spot everywhere he has been. So I hate to say that to Steelers fans because I've got a few family members up there, Steelers fans, but and then for Frisman Jackson, he's a really good coach. I think you guys got a really good one with him. Well respected by the players, well liked by other coaches in the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised that if sometime in the next 10 years he may get a shot to be an OC. I don't know if that's what he wants to do, but he's always been a receivers coach everywhere he's been. He had really good talent when he was at NC State, when he had Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He had I think Jalen Samuels was there for a little bit. And then, in Carolina, he's had DJ Moore, who has had no quarterback play yet, has had 3 straight seasons of 1,100 yards receiving. So he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the quarterback play in sort of reference to both of these guys, because bad quarterback play doesn't make any coach look good, right? And obviously things weren't really copacetic between Matt Rule and Joe Brady, and there seemed like some questions about how much influence the head coach was going to have on things. How much did that all just contribute to the maybe sort of the environment of that offense over the last 2 seasons, and reasons why nothing was really working?
It was a major part of it, and I think that's kind of been the talking point down here recently. Is I think Matt Rule has a little bit too much power, and for a guy that's only been in the NFL 2 years, he shouldn't be making every single decision that the front office should be making. He shouldn't be making really just every single decision that this franchise needs to make. And really, that's kind of why he's got the power he's got, because David Tepper gave him a 7-year deal and said, you're going to run the show. And it's in his contract that he has final say on every single roster decision. So I don't know if that's a good decision, but him and Joe Brady never seem to mesh. And I think Matt Rule kind of wants that identity to be a ground and pound smash mouth football, where Joe Brady kind of wants to spread it out. And there was 2 or 3 times this year where Matt Rule mentioned, like, hey, we've got to run the football. And then it gets to Sunday and they're throwing the ball like crazy. So, and I think when you have a quarterback like Sam Darnold, that's not a good recipe for success. So I think that did play a lot into it. And when you have a guy like Sam who holds on to the ball a lot, it kind of makes the offensive line look even worse. So I think that's definitely a big part of the lack of success for the offensive line.
What would you say? I mean, you talked about with Jackson. Obviously, DJ Moore has had a really impressive last couple of years. But I mean, would you say there's something that, specifically like they got better at, or just maybe was their calling card of that receiver core? And it wasn't just him. I mean, I think, they had other players that did well too there.
Yeah, Robbie Anderson was kind of a surprise out of nowhere last year, and he had a 1,000 yard season, and that was his biggest thing coming in was he was just a deep ball threat, and then he got to Carolina and they just completely threw out that narrative because he was able to do a little bit of everything. This year was a little different. Sam Darnold, he didn't really have that connection for some weird reason, but you saw some flashes out of younger guys like Terrace Marshall and Shi Smith. And the thing that I like about Frisman Jackson, I think a lot of people down here will tell you too, is he relates to the players so well. Being a younger coach, I think that has a lot to do with it. But he's been coaching receivers pretty much his entire coaching career, so he knows exactly what they need to do to develop. And I think the best part about Frisman Jackson in terms of developing players is he doesn't put them in comfortable positions all the time. When we go to practice, he puts them in the most uncomfortable positions, makes them do things that they're not either good at or as strong at, and he makes them better at it. And you can see that progress throughout the season. DJ Moore was not really a deep ball guy when Frisman or when he first got here, and then Frisman Jackson kind of turned him into that and added that element to his game.
I think that's the thing that Steelers fans are really looking for. When you look at a guy like Deontay Johnson, who's able to get just elite levels of separation, but then has kind of struggled with consistency with making catches. And Chase Claypool, you look at a guy who's just so big and so strong and able to jump, but then hasn't been able to get that consistent separation. And maybe see some guys you kind of like can wish on, think like, oh, if he was just a little bit better at this, or if he was just a little bit better at that, these guys could be really good. I think that's one of the reasons why I think that makes Jackson a good fit for the Steelers. I think the same thing, though, the other way is that, like, Pat Meyer's an experienced coach. He's been around. He was with Chicago before he was with LA, before he was with Carolina. And like you said, none of those units have really taken off in any kind of way. There hasn't been a lot of development. You look at the Steelers line that's likely going to have 2 second-year guys in Green and Moore, who were rookies last year. Kevin Dotson, who's now played 2 half seasons, one where he took over as starter and then he got hurt midway through last season. There's not a lot of experience there. Like, development is going to be required. I don't know if you can give me any optimism, but maybe can you give me just some thoughts about what you see as sort of Meyer's principles, or maybe like what you think he would try to instill on this young line for the Steelers?
Yeah, well, the one thing that I noticed really early on is I don't know if it was more so Meyer or the offense they're running. They don't pull a lot, and that's kind of a little bit weird to me. They didn't handle stunts very well. A lot of that was miscommunication again on the interior, and they got overpowered a lot. It wasn't like these guys were getting fancy with them, throwing spin moves and swims and stuff. They were just getting absolutely manhandled. So that's not a good thing. But I will say he does offer position versatility or flexibility. And I think that's maybe one thing more teams are going to start going to is guys that can play both tackle spots, both guard spots, or guys that can play inside and out. And we saw that with Brady Christensen. It may have ticked a lot of Panthers fans off, but Brady Christensen, when he was drafted, a lot of people thought he was going to be the left tackle of the future. Well, he comes in, they say he's a right tackle. He's going to line up behind Taylor Moton. And then we get about 3 weeks into the year, and he's at right guard. And now he started the final 3 games of the year at left tackle. So we don't know what his future is. But Matt Rule said he's a starter in this league. And I think that just shows you that he can develop talent because he's started at left tackle, he started at right tackle and right guard. So he's going to give you some position flexibility. I don't know what the Steelers roster makeup looks like in terms of free agency and whatnot, but there's one guy that the Panthers did have as a swing tackle over the last 2 years, Trent Scott. He might be somebody that the Steelers may entertain. He brought him from LA to Carolina, and he may do the same there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the Steelers probably in the need for a tackle. They've got Chuks Okorafor, who's been their starter at right tackle the last 2 seasons, is an unrestricted free agent. Zach Banner, who's their backup right tackle, is probably looking like a salary cap cut. So they could be certainly in the market there. They also could be looking for some position flexibility instruction. Kendrick Green played guard at Illinois. The Steelers drafted him to move him to center. It didn't work all that well in his rookie year. Ben Roethlisberger talked openly towards the end of the year about maybe he's a good right guard. I don't know. So maybe they do need some help with instruction about moving positions, and maybe that could make that pick from last year pay off down the road. Schuyler, thanks for coming on with us, and tell everybody where they can find you and find your stuff.
And no problem. Thanks for having me on. You can follow me on Twitter at Callahan_. And if you are wanting to get some Panthers information, you can follow me on SI_Panthers.
Schuyler, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for watching and following Pittsburgh Sports Live and all our coverage at SteelersNow.com. We'll see you next time.